Hi, I'm James Adam Tucker, and for the past 35 years, I've been a director, actor, and editor right here in Hollywood. So today's topic, what I want to focus on is budget-friendly storytelling, writing what you can shoot. I have my list up here so I can stay a little bit more focused. I have a tendency to go down separate trails as I'm talking and a thought jumps into my mind. So today I want to try to refer a little bit more to my list that I have up here so I can stay focused, stay on topic, and give you this information that this video is supposed to focus on. So also too, I want to thank everyone for subscribing and coming in, watching these videos and leaving comments. And I also want to thank people who have been sending me emails, which I really do appreciate. And I try to get to all of them right away. So continue to subscribe and let's get on to the topic. Budget-friendly storytelling, writing what you can shoot. So the first topic I want to talk about is to start with something that you have access to. Now that can be anything. I talked a little bit about this in my previous general video on no budget filmmaking, but I want to focus on the script today. So you want to look at what I would call production value, locations, props, maybe equipment. I had a friend of mine who had access to a farm and a lot of different locations there, a lot of production value equipment that we used in the production. So things like that, you may think about, okay, before you even get to the part of what is my independent micro budget, no budget script going to be about, think of the resources that you have readily available. And those are the resources that you want to use in your script and then start building your story around that. I was speaking with a woman yesterday who has some resources, cabin resources and farming area out here in California. And we were talking about the potential of working on a project together. So at first she didn't understand what I meant when I said a production value location, doing a one location film and thinking of the resources that you have available and then starting to focus in on what your story will be about. And then once she got it, she had so many ideas and so many resources, people resources, location resources, financial resources. And that's what I want you to focus on. What do you have that you can focus on and start that creative process of thinking, what will my script be about? You know, we're not coming from the point of view of a screenwriter who can start on any topic that may, come to his or her mind that they want to write about, because they don't have to worry about getting these astronomical budgets, getting the resources necessary to make it. We're talking about you writing a project that you are going to make yourself. You're going to greenlight it. You don't have to prove to anyone whether this script is worthy of being made into a film. It could be a feature, it could be a short. You are going to greenlight your own project, but you want to make sure that you write what you have access to. Number two, which I always tell people when I talk to them about doing something small in creating a film, short or feature, keep the cast small. You don't want to have 20 or 30 characters because you are also the producer and you're going to have to feed those people. You don't want to have an army of crew if you can get them to work for you. You don't want to have an army of cast, that you could bring in, because you need to feed those people. You're responsible for them, having a good time on your film shoot. Most of the time they're going to be volunteering and working for you for free. And the least you can do is give them some good meals and enough so that they all can eat. They don't have to bring their own food. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Keep your cast small. And another thing which is important and interesting to me about having a small cast is that the actors who are doing the project, most of the time they're doing it because they want the screen credit. They want to have scenes showing themselves in a real production so they can convince larger producers and directors and also agents that they can handle a real role, that they have the talent to go forward and make it in this business as an actor. So they're doing it to get samples of their work, because that's from put my actor hat on, from an actor's point of view, that's something when you're starting out that you really need, and it's hard to get. So if they're most of the time working on your independent project, they hope your project succeeds. It succeeds and becomes a well-known project or the next indie surprise. But from the beginning, what they're doing it for is for footage for their reel. Let's see, single or limited locations. We just talked about that a little bit at the top. Because what you have access to, it could be a location, it could be props, it could be equipment, or it could be a single what I call a production value location. Let's think of another one that I had. Oh, I think I mentioned this in some earlier videos, but I'll revisit it again. Years ago, I was doing a film. The film was called Cain and Abel, and the sound person that I had hired, I had a small crew, and I had a budget to pay them and feed them. So everything was going smoothly as an independent film. And I got stuck trying to find an interesting location for one of the key scenes of the main character, where him and his girlfriend met and they were discussing whatever this issue was that was worrying both of them. And he told me, he said, James, I think it was his uncle. My uncle is the manager of the Hilton Hotel in Redondo Beach, I think it was, yes. And it's right off the beach. You can see the water. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So he said, I'll talk to him and see if I can get that location. And he came through. He got us that location. It was a one-day location. He got us that location for the whole day. And we were able to shoot there from morning to night, zero cost, because his uncle was the manager. And he was able to get us that location. And that kind of access is what you're thinking about, is what you're looking for. In the past, there have been films, the whole film took place in one hotel room. So think about making sure your story is one main location or, simple locations that you can get easily. Don't write things you can't get. Let me move forward a little bit on my list here. Let's see if I can do this relatively quickly. Excuse me. Okay, single locations. Oh, another big thing. With those locations, don't write scenes that require extras. Because like I said, if you're trying to keep the cast small, you're trying to keep the crew small, you want to appear as a professional producer who can take care of their cast and crew. So you want to keep it small so you can take care of them. Don't write projects that require extras. There's no real reason for that when you're doing an independent film. If you're doing run and gun style, then you can shoot wherever you want, and you're going to probably most likely have extras walking in the background. And hopefully your camera and equipment and crew are so low profile you won't attract looky-loos who are standing behind the camera looking straight into the camera or interfering with your scene. But don't write in scenes that require extras. You could have day players possibly. And one thing about working with day players on a no budget or a micro budget film is that you want to be, and that's one thing I'm about to say now is something that I prided myself on as I make films. All the films I made in the past and the ones I continue to hope to make that I'm planning right now, I do really detailed scheduling. That way, it kind of comes with experience from shooting and being prepared and knowing what you want. But I do detailed scheduling so that if I do have a day player, I can tell them, okay, look, come in at 3. We're going to shoot with you at 4, and you'll be done by 5. So you don't want day players sitting around all day. I mean, I'm a union actor, so I'm used to it. I go when I'm on a set. I'm happy to stay there all day. It's a union job. It's something I've been working at my whole life. Dedicated my life to this business, and so when I'm on the set, I don't mind sitting around all day. That's part of the business of being a union actor. But when you're doing a micro budget project and someone's volunteering their time, you have to respect that. You can't ask someone to come. It's unethical to ask someone to come in at crew call 6 a.m. and you don't work with them until 11 p.m. And that just happens. Sometimes you get behind schedule, but you don't want to do that. Don't have your day players coming in, at the beginning of the day, and you definitely won't need them until the evening or late afternoon. Try to respect people's time who are helping you out, and even the actors. Sometimes the main actors, they should be aware, and you should make them aware before you shoot that it's going to be long days. We have a 10-day shoot for the whole feature, so I'm going to need a commitment from you to be here these 10 days from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Can you do that? And that's what I always tell producers who are working on independent projects. Talk with your actors. Make them aware of the commitment that you're asking them for. Don't try to surprise people with, oh, well, I didn't know you had to leave so early, because ultimately the surprise is going to backfire on you if you need someone and you haven't talked with them and they say, oh, well, I got to work. I can't stay here all day with you. You have to have those conversations up front. You have to have rehearsals. That's another thing that's not even on my list. But if you have a small crew, a small cast, you want to work with those actors in advance to getting on the set, because on the set you don't have time to make that the big call, well, why this person or this man can't handle all this dialogue. He didn't put the time in on his own to memorize it. So that's why you have to have rehearsals way before your shoot date. You have to rehearse a small project like this. Say, for instance, let's just go with the number of 4. You have 4 characters. You want to rehearse it like a play. You want to rehearse it, and you want actors who, if you can find them, that actually have stage experience, because that's an ability that a lot of film actors don't have, is to stay in that scene and stay in continuous character mode, and deliver it as if it's a live performance and they're in a play. So that's just a little side note. And so let me get back to my list, because I said I was going to go off down that track. Number 5, focus on dialogue-driven drama. There's many good stories out there, and I'm sure if you're watching this, you've seen many good character-driven dramas. They may be big budget, and a lot of times you look at a big budget film who is a character-driven drama, and you'll say, wow, they could have made that for a lot less money, but it was still good. The characters were good, the acting was good, the story, beginning, middle, and end, some surprises in there, real human drama that people can be connected to, and they will connect to your independent film. You don't need tons and tons of money to do that. Again, I'll refer back to the stage. Some of you probably have seen what they call the black box theater, where it's minimal set. If it's a living room, there might be a couch and a coffee table, and then the rest of it you are supposed to fill in with your imagination. So dialogue driven, keep it sharp. What's the list say? Keep it sharp, keep it meaningful, and let the words do the heavy lifting. You want the actors. The actors still have to bring the story alive, even though it's a lot of dialogue. They still have to be able to deliver it believably, and believe what they're saying. They have to appear to believe what they're saying. They have to be believable, because dialogue-driven stories are sometimes difficult for people. Some people shy away from them, where it's just a lot of talking. But that's one way that you can make your independent film and make it very cheap, but still good. Avoid excessive action or effects. Okay, when you're writing, you don't want to write things, again, back to the top. You don't want to write things that you can't do. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of the actor's time. Sometimes you'll watch a very low budget, micro budget action movie, or a very low budget science fiction movie where there are lots of special effects, and they don't have the money for it. So they're cheating it like, this is the 1950s again, and they're doing the Ed Wood style effects and Ed Wood style locations. Now, if you're doing that on purpose, and that's your story, good, yes. But don't try to make things, and one thing that really gets to me when I talk to people who want to work on independent projects, they'll say, office location. Yeah, I have a corner in my basement that we could put in a desk, and we can, no, please. Those days are gone. That used to be able to get with that in the early VHS days, which I'm completely familiar with. You can cheat a lot of stuff, make stuff look, extremely low budget. But now with television and the production values that the general public sees on television at home, they don't have to go to the movie theater. They're watching HBO, they're watching Netflix. The production value level has risen astronomically to what the general public expects. And again, I'm not saying that you can't do that kind of stuff, because you can do it to learn, but don't expect to compete against, independent projects that find the locations that I'm talking about, that write around a specific location, so they have production values. Don't expect to, pass your mom's kitchen off as a diner. Don't expect to pass your your living room off as the CEO's mansion. And I've seen it all. And it's I applaud the people's effort for trying, and I never tell people don't try. I tell them all the time, do try, shoot anything, shoot a bad movie if you have to, and just so you can learn. But don't be deflated when you try to sell it and it can't sell. You want to be smart about what you're writing in the very beginning, before you even, pull out a camera or hire a crew member or whatever. You want to write this yourself, and you want to spend the time with the paper. You want to spend the time in front of your computer writing a script that you can really, really make. So avoid action and, martial arts and all that kind of stuff that's going to look cheap. It's going to look bad most of the time, unless you have a location. Now, again, on the other hand, unless you have a location of a martial arts studio and you want to shoot there, obviously you're going to have access to some people who know martial arts. So and you're shooting on their location. You're shooting in the location. So then, yeah, you can do some action stuff. Action that you can, or for instance, gunplay. Say, for instance, you have a location, your brother-in-law owns a shooting range, and he'll let you shoot there one day. So write what you can really get. Again, back to the beginning of when I started. Let's see, what is my next thing here? I'm going to, this computer's giving me a little, oh, okay, here we go. Okay, so another thing, lighting, especially with evening shots. Plan ahead of where you're going to shoot. If you're going to have a night shot, make sure you have somewhere where you actually have some light so you can see. You don't want to have the shot so grainy that you can't see. Don't buy into the fact where people say, "Oh, this camera's great in low light, so I can shoot in a dark parking lot or a dark alley with no supplemental lighting." No, you have to. If you can afford to have some lighting, if you're doing a night shot, then do it. Keep the shots tight. Keep them confined. Shoot in areas where they have existing light, where there's stores. There might be a park. There might be, a car dealership is lit up brightly at night. Plan to shoot places where you have access to light, if you're doing a night shoot. Even if you're doing an interior and you're shooting in a building where it's dark, you're going to need some lights, but don't try to light the whole building whole room, gigantic room, if you don't have access to the right amount of lighting. So have that in mind as you're writing. Okay, will I be able to shoot this scene and have lighting? That's something that you want to be aware of also. Also, again, getting close to the end here, write with post-production editing in mind. Let's see, you want to limit the amount of visual special effects, unless you have some special effects and you're buddies with a special effects artist. And that's, again, back to the top of the list, looking at the resources you have available. If you have someone who's great in After Effects and they can do some of these effects that you may want to put into the film and they'll look believably, then you write that in. But don't think that, okay, I'm going to do this scene where, it's a remake of Bewitched and I'm going to have, lightning bolts coming out of her fingers or magical balls appearing, and you don't know anywhere, you don't know anyone who can do that. I'll just hire somebody on Fiverr. No. Write stuff that you can really do. Don't write and think you're gonna, we'll fix it in post, the old saying, So don't do that. And finally, turn limitations into a creative style. A lot of you out here remember the Blair Witch Project, where it took place in the woods at night, and they had minimal lights and they would light their faces with flashlights. That was genius. And like I said, that was when I talk about that project, I think about how that was a lightning strike for those two filmmakers. It doesn't come around, magic in the film business doesn't come around like that every day. But if you turn your limitations into a creative style, then, say for instance, you have a location and you don't have all the proper lighting needed to, quick story, I shot a film, which I'm going to probably end up releasing here on YouTube. We shot it, maybe 10 years ago. The film is edited, but we never got a proper distribution deal. We were offered some, but it wasn't, what we wanted. So I held on to it. So now I have the opportunity to release films on Tubi or even right here on YouTube, which I might use that as one of my test film releases here on YouTube. But anyway, we had access to this old gigantic discotheque here in Los Angeles. It was really popular back in the days of disco, but it's still there. And it opens, it's a community center or something like that now. But we had access to the disco room and everything. It's gigantic. It kind of reminded you of if you all saw pictures of Studio 54. But we didn't have money to light that place correctly, and that was a mistake I made. I had minimal lighting, and I did the best I could, but the footage came out too grainy. But I turned that grainy footage into a style. And what I did was I incorporated that during the editing, I incorporated the grainy footage as security footage, and someone was monitoring the people in the club, hidden cameras hidden. So I was able to write that into the script, but turn limitations into a creative style. That's another thing that you can think about as you're in the planning stages. And again, we're talking about writing the script, and you're not spending any money right now. It's going to cost you time to do it, but you want to take that time. You want to plan. You want to write something that you can really make. So that's the whole point of this video. Making sure that as you're writing your script, you're making something that you can really make. Don't write stuff that you can't do. That's really the bottom line. Thanks for watching, and please join me again on the next one.